Hello, everybody. We are together today for this episode. We're always happy when we can record these together and be together. I'm Robin Mons. This is Jennifer Winder, and we're with Hungry for More. And this is episode number 39, when you don't have the support you need, whether that's from your spouse, your friends, your family, when you feel totally like you're on your own on this weight loss journey.
Yeah.
So here's some things we just coached on this on Monday. Was it Monday? And you were like, make this an episode.
We're going to make this an episode because we always hear, oh, it's so hard for me because I'm eating this way and they're eating this way, or I'm not hungry and they are hungry. And so then I just eat because they don't want to eat alone, or I don't want to eat without, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
all those different things that run through your mind.
Yeah. So here's the main three things that are brought to us regarding this that we hear all the time and that we coach all the time. And the good news is we're going to give you the solution to this. And the good news about that is that it's not anything you need to do to change the person, because that's very hard.
Right.
That's what we've tried to do a lot of times, right? Do the diet with me and that sort of thing. It's really about making the mindset shift so that you can do what you need to do, whether you're getting support or not. Okay. So the first thing we have is people tell us, well, I have a hard time when we're eating differently. So say that you're trying to really eat more vegetables and maybe you're exchanging some things. Maybe you're having more vegetables instead of the starchy carbohydrates. And your person is always eating the normal, right? The normal things.
The
typical things that you would
right?
probably eat with them. And now you're kind of shifting and tweaking and doing differently. Now, why does that feel so hard? Like, why do people sit in those situations and feel like unless they're eating like the other person, it's hard? What makes it hard?
Well, I think we were talking, and I think there's a few sides to this. There's one side where when maybe you're not totally loving the way that you're eating, but you're doing it because it's the rules of how you're eating. And all of a sudden, this other person is really eating the food that you want to be eating. You're just sitting there like, seriously, I want that. I want that. So all of a sudden, it feels like you're eating blah, and they're getting all the good stuff. And so I think that's one reason. But I think there's another side of it too, where sometimes it feels different to be eating different foods, or people think you have to put all this time in. Like, say one person in the environment is the one who typically does the cooking. I know that's different for everybody, and it's yeah. I think that sometimes you're under this illusion that you have to make two totally different dinners too. And I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But so that becomes hard too, because now we're eating two totally different dinners.
Yeah.
So there's a couple different aspects of that.
Right. With what you're saying, if what you're eating you're not a fan of, you're going to want to work on that. That's less of a mindset thing and more of like, I'm not fulfilling myself with food that not only feels nourished, it's like I have to eat this, but I don't want to. That in and of itself needs work done.
That's not enjoyable.
No, you need to like what you're eating for sure. Yeah. And if you have questions about that, if that is an issue for you, let us know, because that's a whole other topic for us. So say that you're in the scenario that you do like it. It's different. Maybe you're like, I would always prefer the roll and the whatever over what I'm eating, but I do like what I'm eating and it feels good. It feels better in my body than how I was eating before. Okay. So if you're in that scenario where you and your partner are eating different things and you do find what you're eating satisfactory, but you still feel like that's hard, that's because you have some sort of belief that it's better if we're eating the same thing. It has nothing to do with the actual food that you're eating.
Right. Last week when we were coaching on this, Robin, it kind of made me laugh because I thought
You did burst out.
I did start laughing. I'm like, wow, that was so obvious, but I had never thought about it like that before. So Robin asked this particular client, she said, so when you go to a restaurant, with your husband. This client was talking about her and her
Yeah, she's
husband.
speaking to this particular difficult, it's hard when we're
She
eating different
said,
things, yeah.
do you always order the same thing? And I bust out because I'm like, when we go to a restaurant, if my husband's getting something, I actually order something totally different. Like I don't want to order the same thing as him. But I just thought that was funny because I'm like, at home, we don't want to eat differently, but when we eat out, it's no problem.
Yeah, so exactly. So I was using that to illustrate if it's really true that eating a different, if you're sitting down together and you're eating different things, if it's really true that that's bad or that feels guilty, then you would feel that way no matter who you're with, wherever you go, what you order. Okay. So a lot of times those feelings just come from that mindset of like, oh, we should be eating the same thing. I feel bad that I'm eating this and he's eating that. And really, it's you thinking that that's creating that sense of guilt or creating that feeling of like, this is hard. It's just easier if we eat the same thing. Is it easier in a restaurant? Is it harder in a restaurant to eat different things? No, it doesn't make anything hard on you whatsoever.
Well, and to bring to another point, because a follow-up comment by another one of our clients, this was in a group coaching session, was, yeah, but if we're at home and we're eating 2 different meals and I've made the meal, then it means that I've made 2 different meals and I don't want to do that. So then, and we'll do another podcast specifically on this, but no, that is not what we mean. We mean making simple changes within the meal. So
yeah,
I'll give you one example so that makes sense. So for me, I avoid gluten, doesn't react well with my body. I have it a little here and there, but I don't have it a lot. So like if I'm making a cheeseburger for dinner, cheeseburgers for our family, then maybe my family's having it on a hamburger bun, but I'm eating it with a fork or having it with lettuce. Usually I eat it with a fork because it's way too messy the other way. But you know what I mean? So simple tweaks within that. You know, if I'm not going to eat pasta because I don't want the gluten that's in that, then maybe I'm having spaghetti squash. So I'm making the same meal with just a slight variation. So that's what we mean by that. It doesn't mean you have to make 2 elaborate meals if you're the one making it, or whoever's making it doesn't have to make big changes for you either. It's a simple thing.
Yes, good. So that first one, just to summarize, sometimes we have a story in our mind that it's harder to eat different than people because we feel guilty or we feel like we should be eating the same thing. And so if that's the case for you and you feel that way, kind of check in and kind of do that check. Well, if we were eating at a restaurant, would this feel like I needed them to order the same thing as me for this not to be hard? Oh, okay. It's all right. It's okay that we're eating different things. Again, we preface that with, you do need to like what you're eating. So if you're good with what you're eating and you know why you're eating what you're eating and it's just different, it's okay.
Yeah.
Nothing is lost in that. You don't lose connection with that person. You don't lose the ability to enjoy being with them during that meal. Nothing is lost. You are eating 2 different things and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. The second thing is when we feel guilty if we don't eat when they're eating. Okay. So again, the title of this podcast is, you know, when I don't have the support of my partner or whoever is close to me, right? That I'm living with, we're in sync in a lot of things in our lives. And this one I find so interesting. This does come up. This is a real issue for people. They feel really guilty if they choose not to eat and the other person is eating. And then it feeds into that story
Or
of like,
the
I
other
don't have
way,
support.
if they're hungry and they want to eat and the other person isn't eating yet, right?
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I grew up with this, we eat dinner together as a family in the evening.
Yeah, totally.
So there's workarounds, you guys.
Exactly. You can still value that time. So let's go into that. A lot of times this presents during that dinner meal. That's when people bring it to us. They're kind of fine if they eat different breakfast, lunch.
Right.
But it's because we do in society, we really, at least in this Western society, really value that dinner time and being together. And that's okay. You don't have to throw that away when you're making changes. You can still be together. So here's a couple options with that. The first one, and I'll let you say that, talk about the second one. The first one is understanding that whether you are eating or not eating, it's not the food that provides what we're wanting from sitting down to have a
Right.
meal together. The food isn't the thing that's like, and now we are bonded as a family and we had this together time. No, that's just the activity we're doing that we've chosen to gather. And during that activity, we talk and we share the news of the day and we share what's going on in our lives. That can still happen whether you're eating or not. So
Right.
sometimes at dinner time when we're seated, I am genuinely not hungry. Maybe I had something later, my lunch was later in the day. I truly am not hungry. I sit with my family. I'm present with them. I talk with them, and nothing is lost. It's if I believe that something's wrong. One thing I do want to say too is some people feel like, well, I don't want to send the wrong message to my kids. I don't want them to think, I'm doing something bad or doing something harmful to myself by choosing not to eat. And I totally understand that we're watchful of that we want to have healthy examples with our kids. And I think what a healthier example than and when I first started doing this, my kids would be like, why aren't you eating? I'd be like, oh, I'm just not hungry yet. I'm going to eat when I'm hungry. And they're like, oh, okay. Like that is the healthy thing you're modeling, right? That like,
Right.
oh, it has nothing to do with, oh, I'm on a diet, that this is too fattening. Nothing. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm not hungry yet. I'll be eating this soon.
Right. Right. And the other part of that is if you really have this strong belief, or whomever you're with really is wanting you to eat with them, okay? You can make it so that at that dinner hour you are hungry.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to you don't have to be like, sometimes it just works out. Like I'll just give you an example. Yesterday I had been busy all day, hadn't eaten. And then I was hungry. My husband was going out and I was like, bring me a number 9 unwich. By the time he got back, it was 3:30 in the afternoon and I ate it. I was definitely hungry. Like a snack would not have, I needed a meal.
Yeah.
So I ate that. And I think I even added like some extra vegetables and stuff. Well, usually we're eating dinner around 5:30 or 6. That was not happening for me. I was pretty much done at that point, because it was so late. And then it was funny because we went to my daughter's soccer games and we got home around 8 and I'm like, I actually am hungry. I'm going to be up a couple more hours. So I had a few eggs. I just threw something together
And
that
it
would
is
hold
something
me.
simple. Yeah.
But the point is I would not have been ready for dinner. So if I know that most of the time I want to eat dinner with my husband, I'm going to make sure that I'm hungry when dinner time comes.
Yeah.
So if it's around 4 and I start feeling that hunger chime, I'm going to go, can I wait an hour and a half to eat? And if I'm like genuinely still hungry, I probably will grab a couple nuts or something just to hold me over. But if I'm like, nah, I can wait an hour and a half, then I'm going to wait.
Yeah.
So you can kind of gauge that and see where you're at. But like yesterday's scenario was, actually had waited too long. I was teaching a class at my house. I wasn't able to eat. So when I ate a regular
full
meal
nutritious
at
meal.
a weird time of day. It was
Yeah.
at 3:30. And so I'm like, yeah, I didn't cook dinner. That's for sure. Sorry, pal.
Well, and had you cooked dinner, you
would've been
still were
fine.
okay not
Yeah.
eating with them and sitting with them, right?
He
So
was actually full too because he had his
He ate
meal
when
right
you
at the
ate.
same time.
yeah. So, after we coach on this, there's many people who are like, yeah, I totally understand it's a mindset and it's still really important to me and I want to eat when they eat. Totally valid, totally fine. But even just understanding that it is a mindset for when you're in situations that come up that aren't the norm, that you have that late lunch that you normally don't, that you can still work with that and no, I'm okay. I'm not taking anything away from anyone by choosing not to eat right now.
Right. And the reality is and there's no planning involved, because one day you could have lunch that just keeps you full really long. And one day you could have lunch and be feeling hungry a few hours later.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's just a day-to-day thing.
good. And then the third one is if you both tend to be people who jump on, challenges together or diet plans together, you and your spouse are like, hey, we're doing this together. And you get going, and then say your spouse is kind of putters out and they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. That is a time when we tend to feel like this is so hard to do it on my own. I don't have the support of my spouse. And So if you both kind of tend to do diet cycling and then you get off your cycles and they're off, that tends to feel to us like we're on our own and alone. And a lot of times when the person swings off, they like go way off and now they're bringing home all the party food and you're still trying to stay.
You're sitting there trying to stick to what you started together and they're over in the corner eating ho-hos. So rude.
Yeah. So how do we be okay with this? How do we stay committed to what really is important to us while not feeling like we have this disconnect or feeling like we're not supported? And here's really the answer to that, you guys. At the end of the day, you only need the support from you. Is it easier when people are they think the way you do, they act the way you do, and they're totally on board and they're like, yeah, I'll eat what you eat when you eat.
Yeah, but that's everything in life.
Everything.
Like I would love it if all my little duckies were behind me, following me and doing everything that I wanted them to do and that I was doing. That would be like, wouldn't that be awesome if we lived in that world?
It really would be.
They're rude. My ducks go all different directions.
My ducks are wandering everywhere too. So yeah, so that is everything in life and we'll tie that together. But really what you do need to know is like, yes, is it easier when people do everything that supports what you're wanting to do? Sure. But it also doesn't mean when they're choosing not to, that you're not supported or that you're on your own or that it's very hard. It's all the ways we're thinking about it, of how it should be and how we want it to be and how we need it to be in order to be successful. If we're thinking we need another person doing it, that's what's going to make it hard. That's where we lose our own, support in this because we get in that spiral. So really staying steady with, I ultimately like, hey, spouse, it's nice. Okay, you want to jump on this with me? Sure. It's nice when you're doing it with me, but I also don't need you to in order to be successful.
Right.
And that's okay. It doesn't mean anything about your relationship.
No matter what, doesn't matter.
Yeah, sometimes we make this really heavy. We make it mean something about our relationship. We make it mean we were left behind or that our goals aren't important because they're not doing it. No, don't give it all that energy and all that meaning. When eating is really a basic self-care of hygiene. Like when somebody else showers and you shower at a different time, it means nothing to you, right? Same thing. It's just the basic self-care of eating and taking care of a body that we've given a lot of social rules and energy around. And we kind of have to strip that down and just be like, no, this really is just about listening to my body. It's going to tell me if I need to eat. And when I know it's my body telling me I need to eat, I'm going to eat and take care of it. And when I realize it's not my body asking and it's my mind, I'm going to say no, because that's not what I'm wanting to do to my body.
Right.
and burden her. That's all it comes down to. So you are your ultimate support. And if you make it easy, if you're not on these die-hard diets that are so impossible to sustain, and you're doing the slow and steady things we're teaching, it's okay, and you'll build that support. But let's tie it into everyday life. Like when you learn to do this with food, what impact does it have in other areas in your life when you know that you don't need that support?
Well, it makes
you?
it easier to start letting go of things, right? We have this, for me, I won't say you may have perfected this. I don't know. We had this vision of how life would be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, people are doing different things than we think they should be doing, or whatnot, or maybe things change. There's so much more peace coming with, well, they're doing what they're doing. I'm going to do what I'm doing. And this is where I find peace. And this is where I find joy. And their way isn't going to influence me.
Mm-hmm.
But and then the flip side of it is this, though, when it comes to food, if I am enjoying my food and I'm taking care of me and I'm not worried about what everybody around me is doing, that influence goes to people too.
More so than nagging them and telling them how they should be doing it.
Yes. Anytime you nag, we know that doesn't work, right? So it's like you just quietly do your thing. And when I had all 6 of my children at home and I first switched over to Whole Foods probably 10 years ago, we'll say. When I first made that change over to Whole Foods, gradually they just started noticing a difference. In fact, the other day they were mentioning something I used to make, and I'm like, gosh, I haven't made that in a while. And they loved it. But it was such a slow change. It wasn't, I cleaned out the cupboards. There's nothing left. Even if you want it, it's not there.
Yeah.
You know, it's a slow thing, and they gradually pick that up.
Mhm.
So it's really nice. It's a positive influence.
Yes, listen, the base, eating is such a great exercise for that muscle of learning how to be okay with what you're doing and to support yourself and not need other people to be doing it like you're doing it. When you can apply that to food, which food is so much easier than all the other topics of life, right? That we face with this. When you can do it with food and learn, you're sitting there at the table and you're doing it different than them, and it's okay. Nothing's lost. And you feel okay and you feel supported by you transfer that muscle and use that muscle in other areas in your life where people are doing things differently than maybe how you would like them to. And you can be okay with that. You don't need to feel something got taken from you. You can honor how they're choosing to do things. And this is what we love about conscious eating. All these principles that we practice with food go into our life, and we start to see the peace with food transferring over to peace with our lives. So this is really important. You do not need somebody else to be eating and doing exactly what you're doing. You are your most amazing person to lean on for support.
100%. And as you do that, you're going to find, like Robin said, that it just brings peace in other areas of your life too, because you get to take care of you. That's your lane.
Exactly. That's a good, yes.
Stay in your lane. Anyway.
All right. I think that's a wrap.
Okay. I
All
think
right.
so too. All right. Bye,
See you later.
everyone.